So, hi Anna, thanks for taking some time out to chat with me today. How are you and where are you?
I am well, and I'm in my studio at home. I live, in the plateau.
In the plateau, very
Yeah.
trendy, cool.
I don't know. The east part, slightly less
Okay,
trendy. Yeah.
off-piste, shall we say.
Yes.
Um, so, congratulations on your new record as Linaire, your debut record as Linaire. Tell us a little bit about it and why you wanted to do this new project. I know you've done other things in the past, and what is it about this new
Yeah.
project that is kind of fresh for you?
Well, I guess 4 years ago, after the last record that I made, I was feeling a bit ambivalent about even writing songs, and I was feeling a bit like I wanted a new. Well, actually, I just kind of quit performing for a couple of years, and I had a great interest in learning music technology, so computers and recording, and it was something I'd done a little bit of, but having more of a background in acoustic music, it was a bit of a jump. So I just kind of jumped in and started learning Ableton Live, and I also acquired an omnichord, which is this curious instrument that's sort of an electronic auto harp from the early 1980s. And I didn't really have an idea that I would be releasing this music necessarily, but it was sort of a personal exploration, both of self-producing and working with this instrument that has much more limited options. The things that it does well, it does really well, and there are many things that it cannot do. Like you can only play one chord at once, and so I just started writing these songs that were very different from what I'd made before, and very direct. My other goal was to be as direct and concise as possible in my writing. And I guess all of these elements combined created this sound that was something I'd not, you can tell it's me, and it's not completely out of left field, but I felt more free on this project than I've done before, and I just decided it needed a name. I also work in music in various different capacities, and it's sometimes been a little confusing to have, is this like, what is this that Anna's up to now? So I wanted to give it its own distinct name so that it felt like more of a thing to me too. So yeah, that's this project.
So was there some kind of music that you were listening to that made you want to experiment with the electronic side as opposed to the acoustic stuff you'd done before?
Well, I actually have always loved artists that use electronics or make completely electronic music. One of my earliest influences when I first began writing songs was Phil Elverum and his The Microphones project or album. And I remember I was living in Montreal for a summer when I was 20, and that album had been out for a few years, and I used to just walk up and down the canal listening to it. And especially the DIY aspect of using microphones and playing with different effects, his music is still extremely organic, even though there's a lot of production techniques and fun things. So there's that record. I also listened to a lot of Portishead and those kinds of bands. It's not really electronic, but there's sampling and so yeah, it's always been with me, I guess. One other album that was hugely influential while I was developing this project was the Young Marble Giants record, Colossal Beauty. Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool. It was, they were a Welsh band from the early 1980s. I think they made one record, maybe another one or some other singles, but they had this kind of insane success, and they used to work with tape, like drum machine tape loops. So they just had like a tape.
I'm
And
My mom's Welsh, so.
oh, no way. Yeah, you'll love them. Yeah, it was this very interesting moment in the early 80s. They did this thing, and it was basically a singer and then a bass player and a guitar player, and then like a tape loop of some kind. And they had these very bizarre, very minimal just arrangements that are quite charming. Like it almost feels like chamber music. It's like punk rock chamber music or like post-punk chamber music, where like
now.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if you'd like them, but I think they were a huge part of this project as well. And then just like hanging out in the Montreal dance and theater scene, seeing a lot of cool, weird things, and just trying to be more free, I guess, with but also more specific. It's like I feel like this project is really about both kind of being very concise and kind of, I work with minimal elements, and also finding the freedom within that structure.
Yeah, not overcomplicating things and focusing on what's important to the moment.
Exactly. And like, you know, I could have made a more flashy, everybody playing on it record, but I was really curious to see what could happen with like omnichord and voice, and then just some minimal other stuff, drum machines. Yeah, so that's this record.
I have to say, I really enjoyed the record, and it feels a good time to put it out. It feels like it fits the year a little bit. Do you agree?
Yes. It's actually funny. The record was done like before the pandemic hit. I was like, well, okay, I'm gonna get ready to like book a tour and all that stuff. And then it, you know, everything happened, and I was like, like we were all my artist friends were, and every person in the world was like, okay, what are you gonna do now? And then I started like speaking to different people in the industry and speaking to publicists, and they all said the same thing. They were like, well, considering what this record is, I think like this is a great time to put it out. Yeah. It's very intimate. It's a little bit, it's about like feeling sad emotions or feeling difficult emotions, which we all are feeling now. And yeah, I think it's very intimate and introspective and kind of introverted. So yeah, I thought, I mean, not that this is a perfect time for very many things, but I felt, you know, I mean, it would be lovely to be able to tour it and play it for real humans in real life, but barring that, yeah.
So you mentioned that you came to Montreal back when you were in your 20s, early 20s?
I was like 21. I was here for an immersion in the summer. But then I didn't live here for many years after that.
So, but you're from Windsor, am I right in saying that?
Yeah, that's right.
So how long have you been back in Montreal?
I've been here for full-time for 3.5 years.
And what is it about? What's the main thing about the city that, after visiting in your 20s, in your early 20s, what brought you back?
Yeah, well, in fact, I actually had a much earlier experience of sort of a fascination with Montreal, which was what brought me here in my 20s, which was seeing a production of Le Dortoir, which was a piece that was made by the Carbone 14 company that was aired on Bravo. And so like being from a small town and we didn't have a professional theater company, it was sort of the first piece of professional theater that I'd ever seen. So, and I was like, whoa, that's from Montreal, that's cool. So that was always like a bit of a thing in my brain. And then, yeah, when I was here, when I was 20, I was kind of just wandering around. I was staying like right downtown on UQAM campus, so it wasn't really like all of the thing, like I don't really hang out there that much anymore. But I think I lived in Toronto for about a decade, and I really loved it while I was there, but I was really in need of a slower pace, and in need of a sort of an infusion of a different kind of thing. And I luckily went to French immersion school when I was a kid, so my French was not terrible. It was not great. But kind of all of these things combined with, yeah, just this feeling that it was maybe time to make some changes in my life. I was like, well, Montreal is an amazing city, and I would be sad if I never lived there. So I up and moved. And I mean, I had a little bit of savings at the time. So I thought, like, I'm never going to be in this position again where I can just move cities. Well, maybe I will, but yeah.
Go for it. Okay, so this series that we're doing is called My Montreal, and we're talking about specific places in Montreal that artists either love to hang out or have a special meaning to them. Is there any, obviously we haven't been able to hang out in a lot of places recently,
well,
but tell me about some of the places that you particularly like in Montreal.
Yes, well, it's funny, when I was making this list, I realized that all of the spots that I was writing about were outside, because that's where we've all been for the last many months. And to be honest, like in normal times, I'm mostly in my apartment making music, or making something in these days. So there's sort of a few outdoor spots that I thought of. Probably the biggest one these days for me is the network of alleys around Montreal, especially in my neighborhood. Before the pandemic, I actually had never walked through the alleyway that goes directly behind my house. And I'd lived here for 3.5 years. And I spent most of the lockdown just either in my house or walking in alleys. I don't think I walked on a main street unless I was going to the grocery store for about 4 months.
And what was the reason for that? Was that just to avoid confrontation?
That's my big one. And well, part of it was like, initially it was that I was like, didn't really want to run into other people on the sidewalk, especially before people were wearing masks or really and wanting to do my bit, keep myself out of being a possible vector. But then it became like this thing of like, well, why would I ever want to walk not in an alley? It's so nice. Like, there's weird cats and gardens. Like, people, especially just north of where I am, people have these amazing like almost like little tiny farms in their backyards. And just, I don't know, you get to see this like other side of people's houses, and there's kids playing sometimes. And there's like this one alley near my house that has like a pirate ship sort of tree house like built that someone made for all the kids to share. And they have communal toys that the kids behind. Like, it's just amazing.
So it's like a secret life to just.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's this sort of like beautifully private common space for people to use, and yet everyone, like anybody who's walking down the street, could go in there. I just love that. And especially during this time, people were working out in the alley, people are running through them, people are like, I stumbled across 5 à 7 bingo one day. There was like all these people sitting there. So I think that's really my number one for Montreal, because it's something I've never experienced anywhere else. I'm sure they have great alley networks in other cities, but this is specific. Another place is de Laurinier Park. That's like sort of my favorite little park to go to, and it became a sort of meeting point for me. And if I was going to have a beer with a friend or something, it's less crowded than any of the other big parks around. And yeah, there's always like some like kid sort of irresponsibly throwing Nerf balls very close to people's head. Like there's a bit of like, it's a bit treacherous, but in an okay way.
So this is just to escape the confinements of the apartment, like particularly during lockdown, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've been like quite conservative in terms of like even when things were kind of opening up, I still didn't really feel good about meeting up with people inside. Also, it was summer, so
Yeah.
yeah. So it's, yeah, in a way I did feel kind of like I had this like insanely expansive backyard that I hadn't really been aware of before this time, to be honest. Like, you know, I met friends in parks, but I'd be like, just come to my house, you know, if I'm feeling lazy or something.
And
But
that's one great thing about Montreal is even though it's a big city, there's you're never too far from a good park, and some of the
no. Yeah, it's amazing. And I guess it's partially because so many people don't have yards. Like if you don't live on the ground floor, and there's this very amazing sense of sort of communal shared outdoor space that I really love. Yeah.
Okay. So what's tell me about somewhere else on your list.
Okay, on my list is yes, I literally made a list. I was like, I'm not going to remember any of these. One of my other favorite places is this just west of Molson, so just kind of east of where I am, so east of Papineau by a few blocks. There's a railroad track that, you know, divides the city in various places, and just, let's see, so it's like trying to describe where this very specific spot is. Just north of Rachel, on the east side of the railroad tracks, there's this huge kind of ridge area that's all grassy that looks over the tracks, and also onto some industrial buildings with like beautiful graffiti and stuff. And people often, like, there aren't very many people there ever, but people will walk their dogs up there or whatever. And my partner and I used to take some walks, especially in the early lockdown days. And we would just go along that ridge, and it just felt so expansive. You can see pretty far on either end, in either direction. And there's a lot of construction in that area, so there's kind of these like big holes and not a ton of stuff. And yeah, I really love that spot. It's like, I don't know, it feels like you're in a city, but it's wide open too.
Yeah, okay. So when you're going to these places, it feels like you're finding nature in amongst the city to an extent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are these these the kind of places that you think about your music, or do you go to escape that? Is the music mainly done indoors and then you put it away when you go outside?
That is a really good question. I think it's kind of both. It sort of depends. If I'm with someone, if I'm walking with my partner or with a friend, I'm not really thinking about music, and I'm usually doing that. Or maybe we're talking about music. Like I certainly, a lot of my friends are also artists, and so we sort of shoot the shit about what we're working on or what things, like it's sort of artistically related, but certainly I get most of I get about 50% of my best artistic ideas when I'm walking as well. So certainly alley walks are great for, or just clearing my head. Like if I'm wrestling with an idea, like then I'll just go and look at some nice things. And sometimes just getting out of yourself a little bit can really, then you come back and you're like, oh, that thing, or something just occurs to you, or some line comes. So yeah, I think that, yeah, that there's like a common theme in my list of things that I like.
Okay, so should we go on to the next one?
Yeah, for sure. Another thing that I just discovered, because I did a lot of biking for a long time, but mostly in the sort of downtown or west area. But I recently I had some regular appointments on the far east end by the Olympic Stadium.
Okay.
And the Rachel bike lanes that go that are like brand new. They're like repaved. Like I guess just east of Molson, it's like all like brand new and the smoothest, and there are hardly any stoplights, and they're very infrequently changing. So you can just it's the best speed I've gotten on my bicycle in the whole city, except for maybe down at the canal, but there's usually also no one on there. So you don't even have to worry about coming across some slow cyclist. And so those bike lanes are unbelievable. And I love cycling. So that's, yeah.
Are you breaking free?
Yeah, exactly. It's so hard to get true exercise on a bicycle in a city. You can use it and feel active, but it's not you're yeah, I'm gonna so there's that. And
yeah, there's definitely a thread going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't know, there are just so many outdoor spots like that. I'm trying to think if there's any other specific spot that is not an outside spot. It's I can't remember the before time.
Let's go pre-pandemic.
Yeah, I
know. Any clubs or places or anything like that you particularly loved? Are you a fan of the more intimate spaces, or where would you like to hang out?
That's actually, thank you for getting me onto back on track. I really love the sort of the Scala Rosa, Casa del Popolo, Vitrola, Sardegna venues. They're where I've performed the most.
Spaces.
And sorry? Yeah.
More intimate spaces.
Yeah, exactly. I don't go to a lot of huge shows. I've been to a few big shows at the larger places, but in terms of places that I really enjoy just being, kind of no matter what, they're fantastic. And it was actually very, one of the first things that I did when I first moved here, just to acquaint myself with the scene, was I volunteered to work door at the Suoni Festival.
Okay.
And I just sort of volunteered to work whatever show. I had no idea what most of the things were, and I would purposefully not find out before, if I hadn't heard of a band, I would just become acquainted with them at the show. And I worked so many interesting shows and met so many amazing people, and they compensate you with drinks, and you always get to shut down the door by the time the headliners started, so you can just hang out and watch the show. And there's something about those venues. They're appropriate for chamber music or noise bands or whatever, and it's a lot of the same people that go to a lot of those different shows too. And it really broke down a lot of it made me feel like I was in the center of a community. Well, not in the center, but in a community that just really liked all kinds of different things. And so those places. I have to say, probably I'm very happy to stay home a lot of the time anyway. I'm a bit of a introverted person, but I really miss getting to go to shows at those venues
Yeah,
and doing shows.
obviously this time is hitting those kind of venues harder than most.
Yeah.
And you know, it looks like not all of them are going to make it through.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think the ones that do, we're going to appreciate them even more moving forward, hopefully, Anna.
Oh man, I hope so.
Hopefully we can get out and see shows and support all these venues and
Yeah, just build up our scene again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up. I don't want to keep you for too long, but thanks again for spending time with us. One last question, actually two last questions. I want to know the songs on the album, which are you most proud of?
That is a good question. I'd say that the one I'm most proud of, it's maybe not, it's one of the more understated albums, songs on that album, but it's called Best I Can. And it is, yeah, it's just very simple, very concise, and I was very happy with how it turned out.
Okay, and I know that you're friends with a lot of different artists in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, if you had to pick one name out of all the people that you know, or just that you've seen live in Montreal, like local artists that maybe we haven't heard of, is there anybody that jumps out that you think that we need to check out?
That's a good question too. I just need to think of the name of this band because it's been so long. Sorry, yes. So there's this band called Tamayuge. You know them?
I don't think I do.
Oh man, it's great. It's this Tamara Filievich and Maya Kuroki, and they have
You are remembering names.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's just like, eventually things come back. I do sometimes remember things. It's like an experimental, Tamara works with different synthesizers, and Maya uses her voice and I think a guitar sometimes, and they dress up like nurses, and it's a very interesting project. It's like kind of, it like really grooves, but it's also got like a lot of I don't know, experimentation and sonic variety. And yeah, I've seen them play a few times and I really think they're great. So that's the first thing that came to mind.
Okay. Well, we'll try and check them out for sure. So thanks for that. So thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully you'll get to bring these songs to an audience.
Yeah, one day.
In the future.
And in the meantime.
And hopefully we can be there to see you do that. So
that would be
yeah. All the best, Anna. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.